Hey, Dan.
Yeah, Jake.
Did we make up code names for if we have to lie about our identities?
Oh, yeah, I have one.
Yeah?
Huge ass.
Oh, fuck you.
No, dumbass. Look in the glove box. I stole the FBI badges from the people who actually work the X-Files. It's why I bought that red wig in the back, just in case we need to dress up as Scully.
Oh, that makes sense. So, this town is called Derry? That's kind of dumb. Is it a big cow town? If we see cows, can we meet them? They may know what's up.
Yeah, if we see cows, we can go meet them. But I really need to stop at a gas station before I piss my pants. Alright, I'm gonna run into the bathroom and grab some Slim Jims. You can come in or just sit out here and stretch your legs.
I'm just gonna stretch my legs and catch up on the slack. Ugh. Jeez, these people sure do love monsters. Some real weird ones they want to fiddlesticks. I don't know if I can reach my phone down in the sewer.
Hiya, Jakey. This is a real nice phone. You need it back?
What in the ever-loving fuck was that?
It's me, Jakey, your new friend Pennywise. Oh, looks like all your friends are talking up a storm. Why aren't they here?
My brother's here.
Where's he?
Taking a leak. So, what are you, some sort of sewer pervert or something?
I'm Pennywise, the dancing clown.
Nope, absolutely not. Don't need my phone. I'm getting the hell away from here.
No, you aren't.
No, you've got the wrong guy. My brother's the one with the clown fetish. Dan, help!
Hey, Jake, I got you some Cool Ranch Doritos. Oh, where the hell did he go? Oh, jeepers.
Welcome, constant reader, to Gate Slashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Come in and sit for a spell as we introduce you to the weird, terrifying, yet oddly entrancing world of Stephen King. With over 60 novels to his name, countless short stories, a best-selling pseudonym, and a laundry list of awards, Stephen King is one of the most established authors of the 20th and 21st centuries. A wordsmith who can make your skin crawl, heartbreak, or even leave you inspired. There are many facets of King's writing for you to choose from. The aptly named King of Horror began his meteoric rise with 1973's Carrie and never looked back. Not without his own personal demons, his tortured writing gave breath to those who were silently fighting their own addictions. The man even survived being hit by a car, an event that would inspire several novels and would encourage him to reattempt finishing his magnum opus, The Dark Tower. Wherever your loyalty lies in the spectrum of King's genres, horror, true crime, mystery, etc., we can all agree his transcendent writing capability keeps us all coming back for more. Welcome, everyone. My name is RJ Durante. My pronouns are he, him.
And I'm John Scott, and my pronouns are he, him.
Today we are going to start by giving you 10 books about the one, the only Stephen King has written himself.
I just do have to say before you go, and this is a slight teaser, when you were saying his car accident inspired several elements, I wanted to put inspired in quotations. Because
there was some other inspiration going on.
There's some other inspiration there, not just the car accident. That's many of his books. We're going to get into that.
Yes, we are definitely going to get into that. So today's episode is going to be broken into two parts. The first part, John and I are going to go back and forth on 10 books, 5 each, that have meant something to us in our own journey as King readers. Then there'll be a little break, and afterwards we're going to get into the spoilerific fun of the good, bad, weird Stephen King films of the years. So to kick things off, I'd like to start with John. John, thoughts?
RJ, do you remember the face of your father?
He said he was coming right back.
Oh, well, maybe he's getting really quick with his carton of milk. Who knows? Anyway, my first book was the book, actually, I think the very first King book I ever read, The Dark Tower, Book 1, The Gunslinger from 1982. I believe this was a bunch of short stories he had written regarding Roland Deschain, which I'll get into in a second, and compiled into one novel later on.
Yes.
But, okay, so this is the summary. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Thus begins the epic tale of Roland Deschain of Gilead, the last gunslinger, which is kind of a knight, and his quest to search for the nexus of all realities, the Dark Tower. Widely, this is referred to as King's magnum opus, and for damn good reason. The themes are morality, gray area, survival, quest for knowledge, sense of justice, and unwavering pursuit, and that's just book 1. Obviously, more happens as more goes on, but we're going to focus on the first book for now. And who may like it? Fans of epics such as The Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, fans of the multiverse theory, fans of shared universes, and turtle fans.
I think that opening line too, the man in black fled across. It really is. It's one of the greatest
books. That's the first thing you think of with King. That's like the very first thing, at least I think of, because I remember I have a 4-book collection on my shelf. If you can see it, my shelf's right over there. Audio listeners, you can't hear it because this is video recording.
He has them. You can trust me.
Yeah,
he's got
them. So that was the first one. I remember just sitting there. I remember it took me 2 years to finish the whole series because it's one of those things where you can't go all in a row. You have to set it down, let it sit with you, then come on back.
Yeah. I think too it's one of the best first books of any, long series that I've read. Especially when you consider a lot of people will be like, oh, this is a great series. The first one, just kind of is building and starts into something. No, from the get-go of the first book, you were just dropped into this magnificent world, and you really just have to hop along for the ride. That's the best way to describe book 1.
When we say shared universe, this really is the first honest to God true example, even predating Kevin Smith's Views universe.
Mm-hmm.
The first honest to God shared universe, cinematic
for
shared,
books, yeah,
for books.
But and it's crazy too because you think in King's collection of 65 or so novels
and counting,
thank God. I'd like to say easily 25 to 30 of them have some sort of connection to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
And even he has said that it's a door that he thinks is closed, but he said that, and then
more doors kept opening.
Exactly, and then in the past 10 years, we got went through the keyhole, and also there was a space of 20 odd years where he didn't write any Dark Tower related stuff, and then got back into it due to the car accident we referred to earlier. So yeah, it's a wild ride, and I think it's one of my favorites as well. It's a great I think it's a great starting point for King readers too.
I think also if you're just a big fantasy fan, like if you're coming in like, oh yeah, I like Game of Thrones or I like Lord of the Rings, and I'm looking for my next fantasy binge or fantasy read, this is a perfect start.
Mm-hmm. And I will say to those out there, the lore itself, I mean, there's definitely Western motifs and things of that nature. So there definitely is a little something for everyone, especially in the full series. But yeah, it all starts with book one, and I think the Gunslinger is arguably one of the best book ones of any series that I've read.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
So we're gonna
what do you have for your first pick?
So this is my favorite King read. This is my King read of every October. I'm actually gonna start it.
Before you go, I just realized how well this ties into the Dark Tower because of who's in it.
Yes.
This is a good segue.
Yeah.
Continue.
So this is my yearly reread in October. Salem's Lot. It was written in 1975. Our summary here is Ben Mears, a writer who spent part of his childhood in Jerusalem's Lot, I guess that's where they got the title of the book, has returned after 25 years to try and write his next novel. But he wasn't the only new resident of Salem's Lot, as familiar Richard Staker and vampire Kurt Barlow descend upon the sleepy town and wreak unimaginable havoc. My favorite King read, absolutely, 100%. The themes here, death, there's a lot of it. Loss of innocence, in terms of child loss of innocence and just loss of innocence altogether. Religion, it's very gothic horror, and ultimately it's good versus evil, like flat out good versus evil. So who may like it? Fans of vampires and vampire lore, people who do not get attached to major characters, and
that's most of King's books.
Yes, and people who put blood in their pumpkin spice, I think, is probably the grab here. But
so, are you talking about just everyone who watched Twilight in the late 2000s?
Yes. Here you go. It's like Twilight. If you like Twilight, read this.
No, that's that's the best way to trick somebody. It's definitely like Twilight.
It's Twilight. It's Twilight. There's the beginning of the book. There's a love story, and it's tragic. But we're gonna stay spoiler free here.
Yes, obviously spoiler free. I will say though that down the line, speaking of Dark Tower, this does connect back through a major character in a pretty surprising way. Actually, that was my introduction to that character, and then I just read Salem's Lot, I think a year or two ago for the first time.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird how that all works. Like, I just never was like, I had so many other books to read that I just never got around to it. Then I finally got a copy. I'm like, I should probably read this because I read The Dark Tower so many years ago.
It's crazy because this is the most I would say this is like the top 5 most recommended King book when it came to like, and this is just general polling of other King readers. Who I've talked to. Salem's Lot is in their top 5. They always are like, oh yeah, have you read Salem's Lot? And
it's
I'm like,
good. And obviously, I haven't seen the adaptation. We'll get to that in a second. But isn't it based off a short story that King wrote too? That's like.
So it started as a short story. So Salem's Lot comes out, and then
3 years later. Okay,
and then he wrote a short called Jerusalem's Lot. That really is kind of the founding of the town itself way back when, and
so
the horrors prequel that occurred there. And then you've kind of find out a little bit about what happens to one of those characters in book 6, 7 of the Dark Tower. But yeah, King likes to do that. This book itself kind of was one of the first books too that really threw me for a loop, when characters who are like, you go into books thinking that your favorite characters are like invincible, and that's not the case. I'm going to warn you right now, for any King soon to be reader out there, no one in King is safe. children or adult. I will tell you that right now,
King,
just so there's
King
no disappointment.
says all bets are off the table.
Correct. He was the original George R.R. Martin.
Yeah.
He does not care.
Which is why George R. R. Martin asked him, "How the fuck do you write so many books so fast?"
Exactly.
What a quote! I love that quote so much.
It's going to be on George R. R. Martin's tombstone too, because King will be writing pages over it.
It's going to be in the dedication of The Winds of Winter whenever that happens.
Let's not get started.
No, I'm not going to. Okay.
Yeah. Closing thought on Salem's Lot. If you truly need a good cold weather, hot cup of coffee out watching the fog roll in on a October morning, this is the book you want in your hand.
Yeah.
This is definitely the book.
Yeah, this is what I definitely associate with the fall season.
Exactly. All right, John, where are we going next?
So we're going to go down Highway 50 in Nevada, and we're going to make a little pit stop in a town called Desperation. The brief summary, attack. That
Solid.
translates to several people traveling along Highway 50 in Nevada find themselves arrested and captured by Collie Entergain, the deputy of the town of Desperation. It soon becomes clear that Collie may not be who he truly appears, and now the group must fight their way out to survive. Attack. This was, I think, the first King book I read that wasn't a Dark Tower series book.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least wasn't a short story collection either. I think I read Full Moon, No Stars? Full Dark, No Stars?
Full Dark, No Stars, yeah.
Okay, I read that after Tower book. But the themes here are loss, religion, cruelty, one's own beliefs, belief in a higher power, and abuse of power. And who may like it are religious fanatics, non-religious fanatics, and people who enjoy a story of good versus evil. I'm sure there's others. Those are just ones I had off the top of my head.
I'm gonna tell everyone a majority of King books are good versus evil.
Yeah,
he plays that note a lot.
Especially the big ones. The really big, thick books are good versus evil stories.
And we will get into those as well. Desperation might be the only one on the list I've actually never read.
Really?
Yes.
This was the first King I ever read. I remember my uncle had given me a copy because he knew I was getting into King, and he's like, I don't read this anymore. If you want it, here you go.
Yeah.
And I was enthralled. This was the one that introduced me to the concept of like big, sprawling King stories, big epics, if you will, kind of thing of what King does, you know?
Yeah.
Following multiple characters, their inner thoughts, each more interesting than the last kind of thing. And he'll do this a couple more times, which is, I think, why it's the series of King that I like the most. Yeah.
Now, remind me, is this the film version of this would have been Ron Perlman?
Yes.
As the sheriff, right?
Yes.
Okay, then I've seen bits and pieces of the actual series
Ron
itself.
Perlman looking at the camera and bugging it going, tack.
I don't know. Okay, now
it's also weirdly King's most religious book.
Really?
Okay, for those who don't know, King, not very much of a religious person.
Correct.
Not very much of a religious person. But and doing the research, looking back into it, there's a lot of talks about how the God in King in this book that King presents is a cruel one.
Yeah.
So kind of presenting that argument, and obviously he's going to explore religion a few more times.
Yeah.
But never to this extent that I've seen.
I know, especially we're gonna get into revival a little later on, but it's really interesting to kind of see how King twists religion and especially religious fanaticism, because he is a wordsmith, like I mentioned before, and he does a phenomenal job kind of hitting on everyone's crutch related to religion.
There's actually a great Grady Hendrix, Gatecrasher's favorite over here, Grady Hendrix, wrote a great essay about desperation and about the themes that, you know, it's a cruel God. It's one of the most profound Christian novels of the second 20th century. And Stephen King has even said, the other thing that's interested me ever since I was a kid, and the idea that's it says baldly or badly articulated in desperation, and that is God is cruel.
Mm-hmm. I think, you know, and just to kind of like close out on desperation, it's something that I'm obviously going to have to read because I know that the film actually intrigued me a lot.
I think you'd like
and
it
also,
a lot.
This again is consistently talked about in like top 10, top 15 of King. So obviously there's a reason why it's on this list as well, as John enjoys it as much as
you know
he
what?
does.
It says that, but I always feel it's so underrated. Like every time I talk to people I know who like King, it's never immediately brought up.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone's always going for your Salem's Lots, your Carries, your Stands, the big ones.
Yeah.
But I always feel like Desperation deserves to be in that conversation too because of the way it presents itself.
Speaking of big ones,
Yeah.
we're gonna hop on into a big one right here. The Shining. This is from 1977. This I would say is probably arguably one of King's most recognizable works. For a crazy reason, because he hates the film that was made of it. Brief summary.
That's so funny to me.
It really is. The Overlook Hotel, an isolated haunted resort located in the Colorado Rockies, needs a caretaker from late fall to early spring. Enter Jack Torrance, his wife Wendy, and their 5-year-old son Danny, who move into the hotel after Jack accepts the position. Not all is what it seems in the Overlook, as its bloody history tries to add this family to its list of eternal guests. Themes: alcoholism and abuse, isolation.
That shows up a lot in King as well. Besides Business Evil, big on alcoholics.
Pretty much the demons that King himself fought, and part of his work through a lot of his own issues was writing. Writing was his therapy. So you will see these constant like struggles that he has himself appear on the page. But yeah, some more themes for The Shining. Precognition. We really get this first look into the Shine. Fear, the paranormal. People who may like it, I'd say people who love, a suspenseful read and pretty much the building of one. Any fans of haunted hotels, people who hate topiaries, and people who have a deep desire to murder their families. I'd say this is, and I don't count Pet Sematary because I think it's a scary read for an entirely other issue. For me, being a dad, this was one of the most unsettling, scary books that I read of King's.
My girlfriend read it. She's not a King fan, but she read it. She's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "Yeah."
It's such a slow burn too. Mm-hmm. Because obviously, at the first of it, learning about what the Shine is, it essentially is this power that certain people have. It's believed that everyone has a little shine in them, but some people shine brighter than others. And
Which
it's
sounds really wholesome when you think about it.
Yes, it does. It is this ability, essentially, of communication through ESP, seeing events that might happen before they happen, certain communication with the dead. There's a lot into it. And Danny Torrance, Jack's son, is one who shines very bright. As we'll see in a sequel, possibly later on in this episode.
I cannot wait to talk about that sequel.
Yeah, I know.
That's my God.
I circled that at the bottom. I had to go back and rewatch. It's such a good book.
We'll get into that.
We will get into it. I'd say The Shining is arguably top 5 King, maybe even top 3.
I would say top 3. I would say top 3, if not top 5. I will say, though, if anyone's going to go into The Shining thinking, oh, it's going to be just like the movie, I'm going to tell you right now, it is not. It is vastly different compared to the movie. The movie, while also more of a slow burn, I think gets into the more supernatural stuff a lot quicker than the book does.
Correct. And I think that's what gives...
And I think it presents Jack's struggles a lot clearer than the movie did. And I love the movie.
And I feel like in the movie, and I had to rewatch, I did a rewatch of the Nicholson version. I did a rewatch of the miniseries, The miniseries, if you love the book, the miniseries is very book accurate. And yes, of course he did. And then Doctor Sleep, which we'll get into later, which is the sequel to The Shining, is a great. Flanagan does a great job. But you know what? I'm not going to get into it. But
save it because I
I'm
have
gonna
a
save
lot
all that.
to say about The Shining.
Long story short, The Shining is this great build, and you really don't kind of see what is going to happen until it actually happens, and then it's absolutely fucking terrifying.
It's one I recommend reading if you live in a place where snow is often.
Yes.
And it is a snowy day and you are home from work, you can't go into the office, and you need a good read.
Yes.
Get the fire going and get that book.
I think too the one thing about The Shining that really stands out is the character build. Mm-hmm. I think one of King's strengths is how unique his characters are. And this is going to sound like kind of an overused trope, but unique but familiar. Like everyone can kind of resonate with them, and everyone sees a little bit of themselves or something that they themselves are dealing with in this character, but they are still their own unique entities. And everyone can visualize them, and everyone can have an idea of like what's going on, and I think that's one of the powerful things about The Shining, and what it's so scary is the way King writes it. You can see it happening, and there is a scene involving topiaries. For those who don't know what a topiary is, it's just when the landscapers make really fun like animals and other shapes out of giant bushes. There's a scene involving them. I'm not going to give too many spoilers away. That is just terrifying. And I didn't think I would be worried or scared about them before that actually, I read that. So kudos to Steven for giving me another thing to worry about. So I'll just say,
going about the characters really fast before we go on to the next one.
Yeah.
I like how we like kind of go into like compared to the movie, because we don't talk about the movie later on, but Wendy's character more than the movie did. No offense to Shelley Long, but
is it Shelley Long or Shelley Duvall? Shelley Long, right?
Duvall.
Is it Shelley Long? Shelley Duvall.
Who was the one from Cheers?
Shelley Long. I think Shelley Long is Cheers. Shelley Duvall is...
Okay, thank you. I always get that confused because they look so similar.
They're going to correct... I don't care. Shelley. Shelley 1 or 2. Doesn't matter. Shelley. Shelley did a good job.
Shelley did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Albeit. So, closing out, go read The Shining. John, what do we got next?
Next, we're going to talk about 2009's Under the Dome. I remember this being pretty hyped up because of the length. I think it was King's first big novel in quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Brief summary. Yeah, y'all remember the Simpsons movie? Where, whole dome comes down over Springfield, and like the town gets trapped, and everyone blames Homer Simpson because he fucked everything up with the EPA. So, Uncle Stevie had that idea in 1972, and just didn't make it until 2 years after the Simpsons movie came out, but he technically had the idea first.
Yes.
Anyway, a giant dome comes down over a town, and it starts to divide people. One side's for like more law and order. One side is more for just dictatorship and everything. And fuck the TV show adaptation. I just want to get that out of the way right now.
We have a lot of feelings about the certain adaptations of these, but we're going to get into that later.
Themes here, like I said, good for evil, small town politics, political incompetence, the negative impact humanity is leaving on the environment. This is, I think, the most environmentally conscious King has ever been with his novel. Mm-hmm. Though it's not overt as, like...
Yeah.
The TV adaptation like me and small town lovers and or townies.
Yeah. I agree with all that. This is the book that I loved 95% of it. I hated the twist. Yeah. It's divisive. I will say it's very divisive. There are a lot of King fans who are split kind of down the middle about how they. Yes. And just to kind of get people like it, when we say a dome, we're not talking about like something that could be breached or broken. Like literally, the amount of air that was in the dome, the amount of trees and gasoline and medicine and everything that was in the dome prior to it being put on top of this small town. That's it. Nothing's coming in. Nothing's going out.
And the amount of electronics that got messed up because of it. Excuse me. There's stuff that's messed up because of it. Like, I remember that pacemaker scene. There's a scene in the beginning where someone's pacemaker just fucking explodes out of the guy's chest. Well, I was like, holy shit.
Plane gets cut in half. There's a lot of wild shit. And a lot of you...
But I think the characters make up for it. Like, Big Jim Rennie is one of my all-time favorite King villains.
Yeah.
He is such a larger-than-life character, and I love him for that.
I think it did a good job kind of exploring. King gives you these outlandish ideas like, what if this happened? How would people react? And he does such a good job of accurately portraying how certain people would experience and react to those situations.
Exactly.
Goddamn right there'd be a Big Jim Rennie in this situation like this.
And goddamn right, his son, who's kind of an asshole to begin with, would be even worse now that he's trapped in underneath. He'd go feral, like of course he would.
I think this book it's a longer book. I want to say 600 or 700 pages or maybe a little
it's
more.
Like 1,000.
Is this one really like 1,000 pages?
I think it's like 1,000 something. Hang on. Yeah, sometimes King gets the idea to be like, I'm not going to cut anything down, so I'm just going to keep going.
His editor must have the best job because you're just like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Whatever you want to put in there, Stevie.
1,074.
1,074. Okay, so the stand still has a beat.
Well, if we're going by the uncut edition, then yes.
Yeah, because the uncut is like just shy of 1,200, if I remember correctly. But anyway, long story short, or actually for King, long story long, not so short. The book itself, I agree with John. I would recommend it. The twist is the twist. Hate it or love it. But I will guarantee you will not guess it. Guarantee.
No, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I will say also what I've seen in like bookstores and the trade paperbacks at least. Mm-hmm. They are taking those big books and they're cutting them in half. So I've seen like Under the Dome Part 1. Under the Dome. God. And I'm like, don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't buy that like that. That's
not a thing.
Buy it in its complete form.
It's not Twilight. It's not Breaking Dawn Part 1 and Part 2. It's not. Don't do that.
Under the Dome, that's not good enough to go that route. It was Twilight, but hey.
Anything Dome related? Just to give it one last push before we move on.
It's a shame that Dean Norris was a literal perfect Big Jim Rennie and he got wasted.
He was.
Like,
he really was. Oh my God.
You had it. You had it right there. The writing should have been better.
No, it shouldn't have been on CBS. It should have been on HBO. It should have been a long-standing series.
It was supposed to be a Showtime miniseries.
Who picked it up? CBS?
CBS picked it up.
First mistake.
That was the first mistake. Your second mistake was making it 4 seasons long.
Yeah. How dare you put it in your Big Bang Theory? How dare you? Oh,
God. Then I got...
Yeah. Just shoot it. And if I remember correctly, they changed the ending. Gotta go back and watch it. So yeah, Under the Dome. Part 1 or 2.
Don't do that.
Next up, we have... I think this is...
Oh, speaking of big King books.
Yeah, I think this is King number 2. I think if this is in top 3, this is number 2.
Oh, this is easily... Yeah.
This is the conversation or 1 or 2. The Stand. Written in 1978. Your brief summary. Imagine if COVID had killed 99.6% of the population. That means there's only 32 million people left. The survivors are split into two groups. The good are led by Mother Abigail, and the bad are led by Randall Flagg. Randall Flagg goes by many names. You might also see him in the Dark Tower and a couple of other places. But this, just shy of 1,200 page epic, and it is an epic.
And that's the uncut version.
And that's the uncut.
Gentlemen.
We see the ultimate struggle for the future of the human race. So the themes here, basically the collapse and rebuilding of society, good versus evil again, the apocalypse. Yes. This is so it literally is. You are inherently drawn to Mother Abigail if you are a good person, and you are inherently drawn to Randall Flagg, who sets up shop in Las Vegas, which I think is the funniest fucking thing.
You know what? There's on the nose, and then there's that.
But yeah, the duality of man. People who like it, epidemiologists, virologists, end of the world preppers, fans who enjoyed the Dark Tower, and basically anyone who just needs to sit down and read 1,200 pages worth of Stephen King. This
Line defenders.
Yes, this is a very tough book to read right now. And
it makes it even worse knowing the miniseries came out the year
the
everything
pandemic.
went to hell in a handbasket.
I will tell you, for those who are curious about what to expect. Of the 1,200 pages, the first 300. I'm not talking the first 100. Not talking to the first 300 pages are strictly about the collapse of our society and the population. If you do not like the apocalypse or anything like that, this is not the book for you.
No, and I'm not talking about.
Correct. And it's crazy because this virus itself escapes from the CDC and essentially just wreaks havoc on everyone. 99.6% of the population is a lot of fucking people, obviously. But it's also crazy because I read this. I was getting over a cold. And yeah, I was in nursing school at the time. I was getting over a cold, and one of my friends was the person who actually introduced me to King. She gave me 2 books. The first one was Dark Tower, The Gunslinger. The second one was The Stand. And she told me to read The Stand first and then go back and read The Gunslinger. And that's exactly what I did.
That's smart.
This is terrifying to read if you are sick.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying. But it's also absolutely terrifying because, again, King, like in Under the Dome, does a phenomenal job accurately portraying what would happen if, and I'm going to say it again, if COVID was a 99.6% killer.
And I don't mean to be coughing while RJ's talking about this. I am getting over something.
Our co-host today is currently getting over
Captain Trips.
Captain Trips. That is the nickname they give the virus because literally it is a sneeze. It's a sneeze and a cough away. And there's a couple short stories that are bred from the Stand, which are good quick reads. But this is a book that you have to invest your time into.
So when I read it, I actually was daunted by it for years because of the length.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I was studying, I was going to go study abroad in England for college,
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at books to bring with me, and I saw The Stand, and I'm like, this will probably last me a good couple of months. I'll probably be busy. I won't have that much time to read it. I think I read it within 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
I have this issue with King where if I get really into the book, I'm like, I have to get to the end of it. And I've gotten a lot better at being like, nope, we're doing just a chapter. And then because I think my problem is I just speed right through it. And then I lose all the flavor of it. Luckily, The Stand, I did the same thing. I was in the middle of nursing school, so I really had to like kind of take my time through it and get through it. And definitely, this is not a one night book.
No, you will not finish.
No, absolutely not happening. I think it's crazy too. This book has 2 or 3 miniseries to its name. Two. One from the early 90s, which King is in.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Also had some just wild casting choices.
Gary Sinise.
Molly Ringwald.
And Molly Ringwald. Yeah, I remember that. And then in the new series in 2020, I heard... No.
That was the voice of Patrick Star.
Yes.
And then, yeah, the new one.
I know Skarsgård brother is in it.
Sam Raimi and John Landis are in the 90s one, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I see King, Landis, Sam Raimi, Tom Holland, Kathy Bates is uncredited, Ed Harris is uncredited, Ken Jenkins.
Did you say Tom Holland?
The director, I think.
I was like, what the fuck?
No. Not that Tom Holland.
He would be
Tom
negative.
Holland that made directed Child's Play 1, Fright Night, and directed The Langoliers.
Oh, The Langoliers. That's a wild...
Bronson Pinchot, baby.
You watched that one, right? The Langoliers?
Oh, sadly.
Yeah, it's wild. It's just absolutely wild.
But anyway, so there was a second one. Came out in the fall of 2020, and actually the end of 2020, which, y'all remember, piss poor timing.
Yes.
Really piss poor timing. Also got dumped onto Paramount Plus, CBS All Access, whatever you want to call it.
I think from what I've heard, and I will be honest here, I've not seen it. I never watched the series. I heard from Stand loyalists who said it was a decent recreation of the book and like an honest kind of lift. I think the issue here is the fact that nobody wanted to watch a series about a killer virus
that wipes out 99.6% of the population, while there is an actual pandemic that was currently not that bad, but currently still doing pretty...
Yeah.
Also, Ezra Miller was in it, which I understand.
That's going to be a tough watch.
They're the trash can man.
Ezra Miller was the trash can man?
Yes, they were.
Sure.
That's what I said. I was like, huh.
Good closer. That's a good closer. John, do you want to take us to a November in 1963 maybe?
The day JFK got shot. We've also been told that gatecrashers... I can't say it.
We'll just say that gatecrashers believe certain things about the JFK assassination that might go against the grain. And we'll just leave it at that. Use your imagination, folks.
We're going to leave it at that. I'm not.
Go ahead, John. 11/22/63.
All right. So, yeah. So, the whole idea is, what if you could go back in time to prevent major outcomes in history, specifically the JFK assassination? What would be the outcome of history being monumentally changed? Would it be good, or would it be bad? The themes are nature of time, consequences of one's actions, and doomed romance. Those are the 3 major ones.
Mm-hmm.
People may like it. Time travel enthusiasts, conspiracy theorists, alternate history fiction. Could change had this moment happen instead of what actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I think King really presents that with his own style here.
This is one of those ones where the miniseries comes out and James Franco blah, 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 is the lead in this one, and I was like, oh god, I don't want to watch this
I haven't even
shit.
seen it yet, but like I don't want to now because I'm like, I don't want to deal with James Franco.
Yeah. But I did read this, and I actually on the opposite side, I have a tough time with kind of reconstructed history. I've been told by many to watch like a show like The Man in High Castle, but I have a very hard time imagining a reality where the Nazis won. So 11/22/63, I went with hesitancy. I loved it. I loved the shit out of this book. I thought it was so well done.
Apparently, it's the one King said he's researched the most out of all of his books.
Which it shows. It really shows.
Yeah, it really does
especially.
show. He talks about like the angle from where Lee Harvey Oswald had shot JFK.
Supposedly.
Damn it. It shows the whole like depository, the streets, and everything. I think King actually went to Dallas and like went through some of their archives and looked.
Mm-hmm. None of that surprises me because first off, King,
once again, big boy.
If King is not something, he is definitely obsessive over certain things and hyper fixated. But this is just all around one of King's most interesting reads. Because of how it's presented.
I think it's the idea of how it's the idea of like, Stephen King talking about what if JFK wasn't assassinated.
Mm-hmm.
How does Stephen King work that? And I think what he does here is he gets the time period right. Like everything is so vividly described.
Yeah.
And so also may have references to a certain clown who dies from bullying. Well, at least two of the kids are in it.
Are they really?
Yeah, Richie and Beverly.
Oh my god, you're right.
Yeah, because he showed up in Derry in '58.
Yes.
Little minor spoilers, but yeah, they're in it.
Wow, I completely.
It's very brief. It's a very brief moment, but they are in it.
I will tell you if
Richie.
We leave you with two things. It's that King is a big fan of dropping stuff like that, like little kind of. What would be an Easter egg for Stephen King? Little kinglets?
That is an Easter egg. Little
King droppings? Something. He does that. Also,
royal droppings.
Royal droppings. He sets everything in fucking Maine. All right. If he writes a book.
Stephen King, I don't know what Maine did to Stephen King. I don't know. I get it. He was hit by a car.
The reality of Maine that exists in Stephen King's mind is fucked. All right.
There's a whole TV show called Castle Rock.
Yeah.
That's about all the characters of Stephen King's books in one town and all the messed up things that happen in town. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to Maine anymore.
You shouldn't.
I don't know if Stephen King's trying to like make a great tourist video for Maine.
Or he wants people to stop coming to his fucking house. That's what it is.
That's the whole thing. The whole thing is just one giant get off my lawn.
Yeah. He definitely doesn't have a house in Bangor, Maine, and he definitely loves when people just stroll up to his gothic horror gates and scream his name. Because he's probably inside writing on his typewriter right now. So yeah. 11/22/63.
So I do want to say, fun fact, this was the first idea he ever had before Carrie even came out.
Really?
71.
I guess, especially growing up in the time period and witnessing the assassination of our president, it's got to be, like, crazy. I mean, John and I have lived through many world-changing events in our lifetime.
I lived through so many before I'm 30. Like, I literally was thinking about, like, I'm 30 next year, and I have lived through an absurd amount of...
We've seen some shit. And I mean, you and constant reader out there, you've all seen some shit. So like we get that.
I'm like looking at some of the details King had for this, and like he got the 1958 price of a root beer down perfectly. That's how detailed he is, ladies and gentlemen.
11/22/63.
Jeez, I love that. I need to read that book again. That was such a good book.
We're gonna kind of jump across to a similar but different time. Joyland, written in 2013. Little summary here. After a mysterious meeting with a fortune teller, Devin Jones takes a summer job at Joyland Amusement Park. His time is split between dressing up as Joyland's mascot and solving the cold case murder of the Lone Park death. With the help of his newfound friends turned family, can Devin finally give peace to this lingering spirit? Themes include coming of age, loss of innocence, mortality, fear, love, growing up, growing old. Definitely recommend it for people who like to read books at the beach. This is a great beach read. Fans of true crime, people who assume every theme park has a haunted attraction, and people who want to read one of King's shorter novels.
I do want to say,
yeah.
So for me, really quickly, so this was actually one of the few King books I didn't actually read physically, but I listened to it.
Really?
Because if you remember House of Cards, starring that one actor we don't talk about anymore.
Correct.
Because fuck him. The main actor, his assistant, Michael Kelly was the actor's name. He played Doug Stamper. Narrates the audiobook. So whenever I think of Joyland, I think of his voice talking about like, "It's not a day in Joyland." Like kind of had a southern twang to it.
I could have sworn that. I know King likes to narrate some of his.
Oh, he's done that. I think Will Patton's done a good bunch of them.
Yeah. Super weird listening to Wind Through the Keyhole with Stephen King because he like changes his voice for women
like
and girls. He's like, so I came over here, you know.
I don't like that.
And I'm like, you shouldn't do that. Like, don't do that voice.
But this, I think, was the first time King ever went into more of a detective kind of.
Yeah. So, for those out there, there is a kind of like hard crime, true crime, King universe. He wrote Joyland, Colorado Kid.
The Bill Hodges trilogy. Outsider, which is more of a supernatural twist with a true crime.
So he definitely does like to go into kind of like that avenue.
I haven't read Billy Summers yet, but I heard it's in the same vein.
Yes, it is. And it's interesting to see someone be an author for such a long time and have such a wide spectrum of writing and capabilities. Usually you kind of get pigeonholed where, like, say you're James Patterson, you write the same fucking book, in 90
same
different ways.
Like, what else can I do with Alex Cross?
Exactly. And then
or Clive Cussler, what else can I do with Dirk Pitt?
Yeah, and then the same could have been said with King. He's like, oh, another fucking character from Dark Tower, and what is it?
Another horror one.
Is it a spooky house, or is it a spooky hotel, or is it a car that kills people, or is it a dog with rabies? No.
Are the aliens in the woods on a camping trip, and there's snow everywhere?
I wonder if we talk about that one. I wonder if we get into that. We might.
I wonder.
Yeah, but Joyland's a fun read. It's a fun, quick read. Literally, like I said, I read this on the beach.
It's a perfect vacation book.
Oh, perfect. Just drop it in the bag. You'll thank us later.
Honestly, it's the most accessible King book, I would say.
Yes, I'd agree with that.
We want to talk starters. That's a good starter.
There's nothing too like overtly dark, dangerous about it. Like, it's a very kind of level-headed, clear, King conscious book. And
it's also very sweet, and it's something that King has done really well, which is the coming of age period drama.
Yes.
He has done incredibly well with that in his time. I will get into it later on a bit with some of the others, but
I think, and to kind of echo what John said, definitely a good starter book for King. And also, with this book in particular, those who think that King can only write one way, just take a gander at this. Like, there's a lot to it that I think you'll be able to get out of it more so than some of his longer stuff. And I think one of the crutches to King is sometimes he is long-winded, and he gets kind of like into an over-descriptive way, and I know that turns off a decent number of people. One of our Gatecrasher's own does not read King simply because they can't make it through his 9-page assessment
description. I get it.
Of what a tree in the forest looks like.
Who is it? I actually don't know who it is.
Oh, it's Dan.
Okay, that makes sense. Gatecrasher's founder. Yeah. Okay, got it.
But he's fine with the short stories. He actually likes the short stories, which I get because when King says to himself, "Oh, this can only be 40 pages," King gets right down to business.
I should say, actually, let me ask that really fast, real quick side tangent.
Yeah.
What's your favorite short story by him? If you would recommend a short story.
What's oh my god?
I'm gonna say You Are, the one he wrote for the Amazon tablet or whatever that's exclusive to the tablet. He put in one of his collections.
What is the one? It's a single letter.
Blockade Billy.
Is it N?
Yes.
N. About the weird in between where there are certain numbers are good numbers and they're clean numbers, and there are certain numbers that aren't good numbers. It's basically a delve into OCD. I mean the allegory's there, but the actual supernatural part of it is very, very interesting. There's a handful of good short stories out there.
Mine is You Are, which is, I'll put it this way: You Are is a better version of Cell.
Yes. I get that. My God, you're making me go through when I read Night Shift, and then Nightmares and Dreamscapes has some really good one. Oh my God, which one is that? The one where the painting, the guy sees the painting at the garage sale of the guy on the motorcycle, and he looks deranged. And
the road virus heads north.
Yes.
Yeah, and everything eventual, right?
Yes. There's a couple good ones. Yeah. Either way, long story, short story, doesn't matter. But this next one I'm very interested to hear about, because this is a sequel to a book that we previously talked about. I believe this is my last one. Yes.
Hang on, slow it down. My dog's being a pain, guys. Sorry.
That's fine.
So in 2013, I think after, I'm going to give some backstory really fast. After 11/22/63, Stephen King put out a poll. Stephen King said, "What would you guys like me to write next? I have 2 ideas in the tank, almost fully fleshed, ready to go. And they are a continuation of The Dark Tower, which is, The Wind Through the Keyhole. It's a novella, short story. Or...
It wasn't a short story, but yeah.
It wasn't short. Novella. Sorry, I meant novella.
No, I just meant, he probably intended to write a short story, but then knowing King, he was like, let me flesh out this.
So actually, I'm sorry, this wasn't during 11/22/63. This was during Under the Dome.
Okay.
So he said there are 2 books. One Midworld book, and a sequel called Dr. Sleep. Are you interested in reading either of these? If so, and this is him quoting here, which one turned your dials more? Because Stephen King has a weird way of saying things. We will be counting your votes. Wind Through the Keyhole got 5,812 votes.
Yeah.
Dr. Sleep, 5,861.
Really?
It was that close.
Wow.
So, what is Dr. Sleep? Dr. Sleep is, obviously, sequel to The Shining. 36 years after the events of The Shining, a now grown Danny Torrance finds himself pulled once again into the supernatural. Themes are life versus death, the idea of legacy, in addition to his usual alcoholism and good versus evil. Who would like this? Fans who like spooky ghost stories, fans of the original Shining, people who hate kids. Not sure. And then recover. I had said alcoholics like this book. No, they went. I'm recovering alcoholics though. They
there
would
you
like
go.
that. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. But the fact that, hang on 1 second, I just gotta.
I'm here.
The fact that Stephen King was able to write a novel to arguably one of his biggest of all time, a sequel to one of the biggest of all time, and have it work as well as it did, is just incredible. And I'm blown away by the writing on it, because what he did is, and then we're gonna get into the film adaptation later on, because I have more to say, I think, on the film adaptation and how that worked. But
Doctor
also has one of my favorite King villains, Rose the Hat. Also, Dan has come out and said that he hates Rose the Hat simply because she wears the hat, and he thinks the hat is stupid. We at Gatecrashers do not endorse this. We at Gatecrashers thinks the hat is great.
The resident King fans of Gatecrashers do not endorse any statement that Dan has about Stephen King or Stephen King related material.
Exactly.
He does not speak for us.
He does not, because he doesn't read them.
I think Dr. Sleep had the hardest job, because when you have one of King's properties, such as The Shining, which is a beloved book, and people have, their feelings about the movie, but for them to take the character and you automatically assume, you want to see this kid succeed and do well, and then you get introduced to where Danny Torrance is right now, and
he's gone through it.
Oh shit, that's right.
He has gone.
This kid watched his father have a full-on psychotic break due to ghosts in a hotel, and he himself is dealing with his own demons, because certain addiction issues run in the family, apparently.
Hence the idea of legacy.
Yes. And goddamn, King really just did it.
King, I think, brought what he was thinking at the time, of writing The Shining.
Yeah. And
he put that onto Danny Torrance.
Yeah.
And the idea of that. And I just think it's incredible how well King was able to pull that off.
Agreed. And there's,
I think with the exception of The Dark Tower, that's his only sequel.
I mean, not so much
on the book that's a sequel, not like any of the short references.
Yeah, I don't think there's any direct. The Mr. Mercedes, that series, obviously there's
oh yeah,
but that's
that's a trilogy.
I know what you mean. Like a true, direct to nature. This character. We want to see what happened later on in life. Honest God, because he's writing short stories, which are pieces.
Or I guess the Talisman and Black House too.
Yeah. There's a lot in there, and any book obviously that was related to the Dark Tower or any characters from it that have been.
But you're getting what I'm getting at, right?
Oh no, 100%. I think this is honest to God his best direct sequel, hands down. And a lot of this too, I want to talk about when we get to it later on, for the movie, because I think the movie does a phenomenal job of adapting the book.
Also pleasing fans of the 1980 Kubrick movie.
Correct. And it's such a weird combination that they had to do. But we will get into that. So I'm going to close out our book recommendations with a book that I threw across the room when I finished reading.
Same. I think I actually heard the audiobook before I listened. So the audiobook, I remember I had to pull over to the side of the road and I just sat there.
But yeah. So Revival, written in 2014. We have Minister Charles Jacobs arrives to the small Maine town, always in fucking Maine, changing the lives of everyone, first through religion, then by his newfound energy healing. Over the course of 60 years, Jamie Morton, a former neighbor and friend, relays the consequences of the actions and possible end for us all. Themes are religion, afterlife, and bleak as fuck. People who like it. Fans of H.P. Lovecraft, fans of Frankenstein, and those who are not fans of happy endings.
Boy, how does this not have a happy ending? This, I think, is the bleakest King book he's ever done.
Agreed.
The ending... Here's the thing. It goes off pretty normal up until then. You're like, all right, this is some, gothic horror with some more of a modern kind of edge to it. And then the ending happens.
I had to actually go back and like reread it again and be like, did my mind make something up? The entire like 95% of the book, you're really like trying to still figure out like what this all leads to, because it does lead to something. And then when it gets there, you're like, shit, I don't think I was ready to get there.
And no, I don't think I was even prepared for that. I remember I had my mouth just open in absolute horror. Like, it's the only King book that has sent literal chills down my spine. Like, usually the other ones, I'm like, this is intense, this is scary. This was the first time I felt genuine fear.
Yeah. And I think King wrote this, if I remember reading this correctly, he wrote this as kind of like his own assumption of how we put so much stock and faith and blind faith into like religious fanaticism, and how like we kind of are like,
kind of like what Desperation did, but in this case he's talking about more blind following and devotion. Exactly.
And really getting at the point where like we're so ready to just accept what like the vision of what God or afterlife or anything is, that like we never stop to like question why, and you know we follow in line, and this book really just does its job there. I will say it's not a terribly long book. You will fly right through it. And again, you will probably be in the same position I was when you finish reading it. But that is not to say that you shouldn't read it. It really is. If you need like just a true horror ending, this is the book for you.
Now I can say this because it's not happening, but Mike Flanagan, who made Dr. Sleep, Midnight Club on Netflix, currently out right now, was going to do a revival adaptation. It's not happening anymore. It got canceled. And I'm devastated by that, because I think he would have been the one to do it true, honest to God justice.
I think, if I remember correctly, they were like, they had asked King, like, what's one book that people, like, people give you, like, flack for? And this is a relatively new one. Like, if you can go through all 60 plus novels of King and be like,
this is 2014.
He says he gets more flack about the ending for this book than even Under the Dome and some other endings. He says not so much that it was a bad ending, but that people expected a different type of ending, and this one just really caught them by surprise, which I guess is the testament to a good book, because that's its purpose.
It is the first time, and I know we're like not hyping too much on the book. That's because the ending really kind of overshadows the feeling. The rest of the book is great,
yeah,
but it's that ending that really like elevates it.
Yeah, and I think that's the criticism there too, is like, so we got all the way to this point, and that's the point we're getting to here. Like that was the purpose of all of this. So yeah, not gonna get into that. But I would like to take this opportunity. We're gonna pause for a quick break. All those who have no desire to have certain films spoiled for them. We might also talk about some of these books again in, our discussions about these film adaptations, and there will be spoiler stuff. This is more so for our King fans who are in the thick of it, who have read, have watched. So if not, take your time and read these books. Go out there and explore Stephen King for who he is and what he writes. So we're going to pause here, and we'll be right back.
Nothing scary in the sewer, gonna find my brother, nothing to her, no interdimensional being gonna get me down here. When we're done, we're gonna drink the champagne, a beer. Holy hell, everything was floating down here. Jake, get down from there.
Ah, I'm awake. Dan, clown, not a clown, spider. He blinded me something called the deadlights? It's hard to explain. Felt like I just railed a line of nightmare fuel.
All right, slow down. You're all right. What did you see?
There was a turtle. This clown is something way worse than we've ever dealt with. He exists outside the known universe, and we see is only what our brain can comprehend. The turtle said the grave robber is out there, and it's way worse than we thought.
Great, just what we wanted. All right, tell me the rest later. Hop up. Let's send this clown to the big top in the sky. Catch.
All right, we're back. Thank you for staying with us, constant readers. We are going to start off with worst film adaptations of the King universe. Dreamcatcher.
Okay, I was gonna say I could do Dreamcatcher, but I want to get the one out of the way that I really fucking hate.
Go ahead.
Fuck the Dark Tower movie. God damn it.
I'm gonna open with this caveat. Loved Idris Elba.
Yes.
Loved Matthew McConaughey. I thought you had a 1-2 punch.
I think the idea to make a sequel to the book is an inspired one.
Correct.
Are we doing full spoilers, by the way?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. If you're here, if you've stuck around, tough shit.
Great, because we talked about he gets the horn at the end of the book,
correct,
and starts all over again because it's just an endless circle.
So, I think first off, there's so many possible TV adaptations of The Dark Tower, and there were so many great scripts out there that they pushed, and there was big names.
Nearly got one,
and there was big names attached to them, and they had the ideas, and they knew what they wanted to do. But I don't know where the hesitancy came in, because if this was done correctly, this would have been the next fucking Game of Thrones. I 100% think it would have been the next Game of Thrones.
Do you want me to tell you? So, the closest we got was the showrunner of The Walking Dead at the time. I think he did it from the second season to maybe about 4 or 5. Let's go with that. Spoiler alert, Walking Dead was only good for the first season. Anyway. But what he had here, I think, would have worked. Here's some details he would have had. The story of the pilot is basically rolling in the desert, etc., etc. In this version, he's chasing Martin because Martin was with Gabrielle, Roland's mother, and he's vowed his revenge.
Mm-hmm.
So then, he would have started at the end of Wizard and Glass. He would have had younger versions. In Wizard and Glass, very quickly you go from the death of Susan to the death of Gabrielle, Roland's mother.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I needed a season to give me real estate so that Gabrielle's death didn't step on Susan's, and that felt like an escalation.
Yeah.
Roland fails to save Susan, but he actually shoots and kills his mother. That's season 1.
Yeah.
Season 2 would have been Wind Through the Keyhole. Season 3, Last Stand at Jericho Hill. The next episode, Roland stumble out into the desert, follow into the desert, and then do a time lapse where you actually age Roland and switch actors and then follow the books.
Makes sense.
That could have worked.
I would have cut out all the stuff about Stephen King and all that other bullshit and tighten up Song of Susanna. And
well, I here's the thing about the Stephen King writing himself into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the drugs. I think that was the painkillers.
I think my hesitancy is the one script that I heard about and I enjoyed the most was starting with the training with Court, going into Jericho Hill. Actually, no, the training with Court, and then them, because it's training with Court, then them going out to the Wizard in the Glass and dealing with Susan dying, coming back, losing Jericho Hill, and then it's the man, the fast forward to the Man in Black fleeing the desert, meeting Jake, all that. You could have done it. All right, there's seasons, there's actual like,
and apparently Amazon didn't think that this won't be as big as our Lord of the Rings or Wheel of Time show.
Oh, fuck Wheel of Time.
Fuck out of here, Bezos.
Wheel of Time.
Fuck you.
Listen, we're not gatekeepers here. I feel like Wheel of Time, we're sorry. But still, fuck you.
I've never read it, I've never seen it, so I can't.
You're not missing anything. I don't know. I think the biggest issue with the movie was that I felt like whoever directed it had never read any word in the fucking book.
I'm actually looking up who directed it so I know who it is so I can just properly be like...
It was, I want to say it was a Swedish, it was like Nikolai or...
It was Nikolaj Arcel, who was known for... Oh, wait, is this the same? Oh, different world. The Power of the Dog. He's working on Power of the Dog, not that Power of the Dog, but a different one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his big movies before this was he wrote The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish version.
Okay. End of list.
Yeah. And then Akiva Goldsman, writer of the great movie Winter's Tale, director of the great movie Winter's Tale, which you've never seen.
I have seen. I've seen it.
I'm sorry.
I've seen it because my wife was like, it's Valentine's Day.
I
want you to take me to a movie that I love the book of. I was like, all right, absolutely. And I sat through that big steaming pile of shit.
But again, the casting was there. It was perfect. I think the problem with the movie is that it's so, for a Dark Tower movie, it's dull.
Yes.
There's none of the creativity, none of the originality that made the books the way they are. It is the most generic, standard fantasy action movie. Also, I try not to be too harsh these days to kid actors because I get it. You're starting out. You grow into it. The kid who played Jake sucked.
He was flat the entire time. I know. Yeah, there was no connection there. Dreamcatcher. Dreamcatcher is a fucking mess.
Dreamcatcher was a mess already because of the book and how it was written.
Okay, so I relayed this to John earlier. He even told people he wrote the entire fucking book high off Oxy. You can't adapt a film based on a book written like that. You just can't. There are certain works of King's that do not translate to film, and this is just one of them, unfortunately. It really is. And not for nothing, I love Timothy Oliphant. I love Damian Lewis.
Again, great cast. Thomas Jane is much of an asshole
Morgan
as
Freeman,
he is.
Thomas Jane, Jason Lee exists.
Well, Jason Lee's just doing his best. Jason Lee is proto Finn Wolfhard in it.
Yes.
Like, if they had not got Bill Hader, who's great in It Chapter 2, but if they had not gotten Bill Hader, they probably would have gone with Jason Lee.
I could see that.
For Richie. I think that would have been. I think the problem is that he played this role first. I mean, okay. Donnie Wahlberg is also here.
Yeah. I think, too, it just is a mess in the sense that...
Wait. Sorry, I'm like talking to myself. Donnie Wahlberg plays the boy with Down syndrome. I forgot about that. Son of a...
I was just going to let that go.
I'm not. Nope, that's...
Yeah. But anyway.
What sucks is who they got to direct it, too.
Who directed it?
Lawrence Kasdan.
Right. Empire Strikes Back.
And William Goldman co-wrote the screenplay with him.
Oh, boy.
Which, William Goldman...
Yeah.
He's done some good stuff.
They both have. And then you have Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman is in this movie. And even Morgan Freeman cannot say... Again, the cast is good. It's just there's nothing to pull from. And the title of the book makes sense for a throwaway thing in the... I don't know. This is one of the ones where I read the book and I was like, it's not the greatest.
I have not read the book and I've only seen bits of the movie. Again, as I've showed RJ, the only part of the movie I remember is Damian Lewis making that dumb face.
there's not a lot to the book that is memorable, and then to make a movie off of it, even more so. Pet Cemetery. Pet Cemetery is a tough one because the plot point is a dead child, which is hard to watch to begin with.
I feel like not only that, but for me as someone who loves animals and everything, just the whole book in general is a hard read for me because of what happens to the family pet and everything.
Yeah.
And the devastation that comes afterward. And then Herman Munster / Lord Farquaad are just like, there's a burial ground. Don't go there. I guess you're going there.
Don't go there. All right, if you go there, just don't bury anything there. All right, if you bury something there, don't.
Right, yeah, I'll help you. But you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It's like this weird... Again, Crandall is a weird character for me because he's so back and forth on everything.
And
it sucks because I like Fred Gwynne. I like John Lithgow.
Yeah.
They're both terrific actors. And we got a great Ramones song out of the first movie.
The book, I know King wrote the book. He had writer Joe Hill. And at the time, I believe they had like, I don't know if it was their main house or like their summer house or something, was near a major highway. And he kept thinking in his head, like, oh my God, like, if I didn't watch Joe for like 2 seconds and he just run off and, got hit by it. So it is every parent's worst nightmare. It really is. The death of a child, obviously. And then to be like, okay, I'm going to turn it into a horror film. What already is kind of horrific. But then to like add like a super suspenseful like Pet Cemetery where, zombie boy comes back and all this other shit. It's a tough one to begin with. The book itself is a terrifying read. I will say that it's just a scary book of his.
I will say for that original movie, I mean, shout out to the director though, because I think it was one of the few horror movies from a female director. I think it was Mary Lambert. Yeah. Okay.
But that's just a tough one. And then good old Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, okay.
What was the cocaine budget on Maximum Overdrive?
The thing about Maximum Overdrive. Is it a good movie? Absolutely not. Is it a really fun, entertaining, bad movie? Fuck yeah, it is. Maximum Overdrive is one of those movies you need to watch with friends.
Yes.
And just laugh at the pure absurdity of it. This is the only time Stephen King has ever directed a movie. He has no memory of directing this movie because he was higher than a fucking kite at the time. And if I recall, he got 2 people injured. I think 1 person lost an eye.
Memory serves, Emilio Estevez bumps into... Emilio Estevez is in Maximum Overdrive. He bumps into Stephen King about like 5 years later. 5 or 6 years later, Estevez is like, it's part of some charity dinner, and Estevez goes up to King and is just like, oh, like, it just starting to talk, and King is like, oh, nice to meet you and stuff like that. And Emilio Estevez is like, we worked on a movie together. Like, and King was like, oh, yeah. When in reality, Stephen King had no fucking idea.
So I am looking at all of the behind the scenes from the Wikipedia right now.
Yeah.
First of all, King had a 3-picture deal with De Laurentiis production company. That obviously never happened. The translator said that he was drunk from 6 o'clock in the morning until late at night, and by 8:30 he's on his 10th beer.
Yep.
What was the other one? Okay. Guess who was going to play Bill Robinson?
Who?
The boss of New Jersey himself.
Bruce. Oh. I was going to say Bon Jovi.
Nope.
Bruce Springsteen.
But so, De Laurentiis didn't know who Bruce Springsteen was, so he's like, hire a Martin Sheen's kid.
Same thing.
And so that's when apparently Stephen King was so done with everything. I'm trying to see where there was one thing. Okay. Cinematographer was struck in the right eye, his shooting eye, by a large splinter of wood that became lodged in the blade.
If I remember the end of the movie, isn't there just like a text over, like all the robots like died? End.
It's like, and then the meteor passed and all was done. The end. Oh, also, we never went over the soundtrack, AC/DC.
All three
Again.
notes are theirs.
All three guitar riffs.
in the middle of a wild town.
I'm reading here. Apparently, King rode a motorcycle from Maine to Wilmington so he could ride alongside semi-trucks, and he wanted to get a feel for how big and terrifying they would be.
Uh-huh.
So he just rode his... And then he arrived at the studio with the bike. Security guards didn't let him in because they're like, "You're not part of this movie. Get the fuck out of here." It's a bad movie. Don't get me wrong, folks. It's a bad movie, but it's really fun. Especially if you do a deep dive into the behind the scenes.
You know how they used to have stickers on the front of like VHSs and movies? That would be it's a bad movie, folks, but it's really fun.
Honestly, that should be the quote.
That's
apparently, I think there was going to be an X-rated cut because there was a version of this that made George A. Romero like almost throw up.
What?
Yeah.
We're talking George A. Romero, Land of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Dead. George A. Romero?
Yeah, I'm double checking to make sure that's right, but
Hot
I remember reading somewhere.
Could you imagine? Horror icon George Romero. Yeah, can you watch this cut of Maximum Overdrive? It's rated X. Oh, I don't know. It looks a little too scary for me. Ha ha ha. Then he puts it in and he's like, Jesus Christ.
He showed the uncut version to fellow horror director George Romero and was quoted as saying that made Mr. Romero sick. So the first cut of the movie nearly made George Romero throw up due to the gore. Now, would I like to see that cut?
That would have... Here. Now, if you released it under A24...
Money.
Print that money.
Neon, A24.
John, you know what I really want to talk about?
The good ones?
I want to talk about the good ones.
Now, did you see the note I put? Because I know we were going to talk about 3, but I would like to mention 4.
Let's start with 4. Let's start with that one. Stand By Me.
Stand By Me.
I think...
Now, we mentioned before about King being really good at doing, like, coming-of-age...
Yes, absolutely.
...period piece dramas.
Mm-hmm.
This is the definitive period piece coming-of-age drama.
I agree. And I think the cast, too... Jerry O'Connell, a young River Phoenix, Will Wheaton, who was the fourth kid? Corey Feldman. Oh my god, of course, the most.
How do you not forget Corey Feldman?
Yeah, I know. I got all the difficult ones and I forgot Corey Feldman.
And obviously, Jerry O'Connell has done wonderfully.
Yes. River Phoenix dies.
Did you ever see the apology he gave to Will Wheaton?
No. Why?
So, apparently, years ago, Will Wheaton was going through some stuff on Stand By Me when he was 11, and he didn't realize it, and he felt awful that he wasn't there to help more, so he's like, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you more on set." It was very sweet, very touching.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everyone who worked on this movie went through such an experience together.
Kiefer Sutherland had his issues. River Phoenix dies. Jerry O'Connell does his thing. Corey Feldman abused by the system. And Will Wheaton kind of kept his nose clean for the most part. Had some issues with...
Which one?
Will Wheaton.
Yeah, I mean, he's fucking Wesley, so...
Yeah. I think that here's the thing, and this is more like a discussion on just being young in Hollywood. People take advantage of you, and it's kind of like surrounding yourself with the right people, and trying to stay away from those that you should. But again, it can't be possible for everybody. This film is something
incredible.
That every 12, 13-year-old should watch. It really is just a great, like, end of summer, like, film about just childhood innocence and the loss of it. And
like, Rob Reiner was the perfect man to direct this movie.
Agreed.
Perfect. Like, his sensibility and how he works is excellent.
Now,
Like, every time I think of the song Stand By Me, I just think of the boys walking along the railroad track.
I agree.
Because, you know what? Let's go find a dead body. it's such a weird concept of like, it's so innocent, yet it's so like perfectly King.
And that's the thing, like them finding the dead bodies, it's like a relatively like smaller part of like the film. The majority of the film is them like just being
kids.
Green Mile.
Well, do we want to do the other prison movie before we go to Green Mile? Because I feel like we should go in an order
let's do. We'll do Shawshank, then we'll do Green Mile, then we'll close with you know what.
Yeah. So
Shawshank.
If you don't know what Shawshank is at this point, Shawshank is now one of the most celebrated films of all time, and everyone forgets it's a King novella.
Correct. And this is one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah, it's such an uplifting.
Was this a Bachman?
No, this was King.
This was King, and this was Rita Hayworth, right? First and foremost, the duo of Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman. The fact that this did not do better at the Oscars, the fact that this did not do better in the box office, like this,
I'm shocked it bombed. I was genuinely shocked when I found out that it bombed.
I think a lot of credit goes to TBS and Ted Turner. He bought the rights to it, and he put it on TBS, and that is where I first saw it. And I was like, "Damn, this is a." And I was in my teenage years. I was like, "This is a good fucking movie," and it still is. I rewatched it recently, and it really does not hold back about prison, and what to expect there, and it's in itself.
Are we going over summaries? I guess we should. Have we gone over summaries for these? I feel like we didn't do that for Stand By Me.
I mean, most of these people, I'm assuming, have seen.
I also want to point out that this started what I argue is one of the best collaborations between author and director, and that's Darabont and King.
Yeah.
Darabont, I think, is one of the few that gets King correctly.
King, well, there was one other that King directly thanked and said that he did right by him.
The Mist?
No, that's also from Darabont.
Oh, okay.
Flanagan. We're gonna get to that.
We're gonna get into him in a second. But in terms of Shawshank, I think it's honestly so much has been said about this movie that it feels like hyperbole or hyperbole to like talk about it more. But it truly is. If you've never seen this movie, or you have if you want to like show like your kids or something, a movie to like just an uplifting movie, because the ending of this movie almost nearly makes me cry every time.
When you're sitting there, and so the film itself is 2+ hours, and
doesn't feel like it.
No, it doesn't. It moves very quickly, and there's a lot to it, and it's like in true King fashion, it's something like diabolically sad happens, and then there's a beat, and then you're like, there's no hope for this guy. Like this is gonna be it.
But it's the way that Darabont presents the prison. It's like it feels hopeless, but it also there's this camaraderie. There's this family. I mean, once Andy Dufresne and I say Andy Dufresne because that's the only way I can say his name, because Morgan Freeman says it like that too.
Talking about my friend Andy Dufresne.
Andy Dufresne. But the way once he integrates
through
himself into the prison
shit.
system, it feels a lot more uplifting because you see that Andy's starting to turn his own life around, even though he still like has that thought in the back of his mind.
And this, and you know this within the first. I mean, I guess it kind of leaves it up to interpretation if you're not truly paying attention. He's innocent from the get-go. He's innocent.
He did not kill his wife. No.
Yeah, flat out innocent man goes to jail and literally is in jail. I want to say it's 25 years that they cover in the jail, like 20 or 25 years.
Yeah, I'm looking
because I think he goes in
47 to about
63,
66.
So say 20 years. 20 years is a long fucking time, and especially then, you're going from basically right after World War II to right before, if not during Vietnam. which is insane to think that somebody could be, locked behind. And they do this great like exposition when Brooks gets let out and talk about institutionalized and how you basically are so used to being within these four walls and the routine that the idea of freedom and the idea of being outside those walls is terrifying. So terrifying that Brooks kills himself.
Not only that, but when Red gets out and he starts feeling that hopelessness too, and even when he's on work, he's like, "Be break, boss."
Yeah,
because he can't get used to breaking that he's the lower and someone else is above him.
Correct. And I think too, and John and I had talked about like other actors, they had looked for certain parts, especially Dufresne
Andy
was a big one. Costner, Hanks.
I think Hanks could have pulled it off. I think Costner in that time period, I think with the roles he was playing, could have also pulled it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because Costner kind of like Andy Dufresne's supposed to be just this very plain guy.
Yeah. And
Hanks, Robbins, Costner can all do plain.
I honest to God think
Tom Cruise as Andy would have been weird.
I thought Tom Cruise was up for what's his face, the kid.
No, I'm seeing it's for Andy.
The one that's not up there that I've thought about as a duo, because there was a poll and it was about casting for King and people just kind of lauded how great Shawshank had been casted and how wonderful Robbins and Freeman were. Somebody was like, oh, it would have been great if it was Redford and Newman, with Redford as Andy Dufresne and Paul Newman as Red.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I'm looking right here. Hackman, Duvall, Eastwood, and Newman were all considered for Andy.
For Andy?
For Andy. Tom Cruise, Hanks, Costner was also offered. So was Depp, Nicolas Cage, and Charlie Sheen at different stages.
Yeah, no. None of those.
I don't either. And apparently Harrison Ford was also looked at for Red. I see, you know what? It's a Morgan Freeman so iconic, I can't see it.
I think, too, because, like, it's tough in the sense that Dufresne, like, Robbins has a sensitivity to it.
Yeah.
That, like, a lot of the other ones, like, Harrison Ford would be like, get off my plane. Like, that's how you see Ford. Like,
can you imagine Harrison Ford doing, like, let me tell you about my friend.
Yeah.
Andy Dufresne.
I
want my family back.
I can't. I really can't. And I think they crafted it too well. But
I think they had the perfect casting, because now it's like you can't see anyone else in that casting.
Now, if we want to talk about perfect casting, we're going to go to Mr. John Coffey. We're going to go to Green Mile.
We're going to go on the Green Mile. Once again, Darabont, King likes the Shawshank so much, he's like, everybody want to do another one with me? And Darabont's like, sure, what are we doing? He's like, I got the serial novel that I've been putting out in 6 different little parts called The Green Mile.
And Tom Hanks, Michael Clark Duncan in such a phenomenal role. So good.
Like, I miss Michael Clark. Here's the thing. I miss Michael Clark Duncan, but I miss that Michael Clark Duncan.
Yes.
Because after that, it was just all action stuff.
Which is insane to think. He was such like a gentle
giant.
Yeah.
Did he win the Oscar for this? No, he didn't, right?
No.
Or did he?
Did he get nominated?
He was nominated.
Was he really?
He was nominated.
Oh, shit. Didn't know.
But yeah, you have Tom Hanks, David Morse, who's another King staple. He's been in a bunch of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Clark Duncan, James Cromwell, Doug Hutchinson, who's Barry Pepper, Sam Rockwell, Jeff DeMunn, who's a Darabont favorite, Gary Sinise.
Sam Rockwell, was he...
He was Wild Bill.
Yes. In my mind, I'm like, where the fuck was...
But this is one where now the supernatural element of King kind of comes into play, but it's used way more for not a horror effect, but for a dramatic effect.
Mm-hmm.
If you have... I know people have seen The Green Mile, but I feel like it's not as fondly talked about as... Like, I never see it put in the same circle as like when people talk about, like, Shawshank.
Correct. And I think
it's a shame.
I think Shawshank casts such a large shadow that it just covers Green Mile. And I think Green Mile is tough too because
It's long.
It's very long.
It's a long movie.
The supernatural aspect to it. Shawshank is so rooted. It's such a grounded film.
It's such a human story.
Correct. Because it's relative and really about like the human condition, the human spirit. Whereas Green Mile, another prison film, but it's
also about that, but it's taken on a more fantastical element.
Yeah, it's supernatural in most aspects, if not all aspects, and I think that's kind of what it shadows. What do you? And I'm gonna really put it to you. You have to pick between the two. What are you picking?
Ooh, that's hard. Oh, I fucking hate that. Oh.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to be honest with you. I pick Shawshank every single time because I could watch Shawshank.
Same. I could probably pick Shawshank, but I would also 1,000% understand the arguments for Green Mile.
Yeah.
In fact, I would agree with the arguments for Green Mile.
Yeah. But if I said to you afterwards, we're watching Shawshank Redemption, you'd be like, okay. And we could sit here and watch straight through Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah. I mean, I got work next day, but sure.
Yeah, fuck it. We'll do it live.
Do it live. But I think, honestly, the casting in Green Mile works so well. Tom Hanks being, like, the skeptic turned believer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was Tom Hanks coming off of, like, Apollo 13, Forrest Gump. He was on that streak for a while.
I will say, too, that...
And Michael Clark Duncan was the best discovery I think anyone could have ever done.
Yes. I think it really...
It's a little mouse.
Really speaks to Darabont and his direction and how he, led everything. And you have such... It comes to first with King with such strong characters that, like, the more that you give an actor to work with, like, the easier time they have to create, like, an enveloped story for their person. Which is why we're switching gears here to the big one that I really want to talk about, which is why I think Dr. Sleep might be the best King adaptation.
I would agree. It is top 3 at least, definitely. Mm-hmm. Like, I think, honestly, I would go... And it is no particular order. Mm-hmm. Dr. Sleep, Shawshank, Green Mile. I think all 3 of them. I
think you could rotate the 3 of them on different days. You'd be like, you know what, Green Mile.
But Dr. Sleep, Mike Flanagan had the not envious task of not only crafting a sequel, an adaptation of the book, a sequel to one of the best-selling books of all time,
mm-hmm.
but a sequel, as much as King doesn't like it, I think he's come around on it recently, but I think overall he not a biggest fan.
He hated it because Kubrick terrorized the shit out of him.
Yeah. But also, it is a sequel to one of the most beloved horror films of all time. Maybe not by King, but in general, one of the most beloved. And I think Flanagan managed to perfectly blend everything into one beautiful package. And I would say right now, watch the director's cut.
Yes.
The director's cut, I think, is the definitive version. It breaks it into sections like a King book does. There's... The stuff at the Overlook is... Oh my god. Like, I remember sitting there watching the bar scene. Like, you got it.
Yeah.
If you did it before, you got it.
I want to say that reading the book, it's a scary book. Watching the film, there's definitely some things that are tough. Jacob Tremblay, in that film, in the director's cut, because in the first 20-30 minutes, Rose the Hat lures and murders a child, but that is seen off screen. Jacob Tremblay is the first child that really gets, like, sliced and diced on screen with sound aplenty, and it is awful and agonizing and so...
his scream
oh my
when
God.
He's, like, getting dived, it is...
Yeah.
Bone
I know.
chilling.
Yes, and something that, like, I fast forward I'm not gonna lie, I just fast forward the scene.
That's fair.
After I had seen it the first time, I was like,
Try watching it in the theater. And by the way, the fact it's bombed is so devastating to me. But
I think here's the thing. Dr. Sleep was a good novel. Okay, so first you're going off the sequel to one of the most beloved King stories of all time. A sequel that in itself was on the bestseller list, but people were still hesitant to see the film. And then on top of that, you had even the original is still over 2 hours.
2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. And, there's just a lot of tough stuff in it to begin with. Definitely not a great date movie. There, not really a great kids film. So, Radar Films already have its...
You can just tell your kids, hey, do kids like that book Wonder? Well, I got another one for you.
You're going to wonder what happened to you if you don't clean your room.
Wonder what happened. I have to say, my favorite scenes in that movie are the scenes where Rose and Danny meet up with each other in the hotel.
Yeah.
Like, just the way they go at each other is just...
First off, Ewan McGregor in this film is perfection.
Literal perfection.
Rebecca Ferguson in this film is perfection.
Again, we support Rose the Hat in this house. Yes. Anything said by others is a fucking lie, especially when they don't read the books.
And it's just the two of them. It's so good. I really love the
little girl who plays Abra.
Yeah, oh my god, what the hell do they call them? The Iron Trust. What did they call themselves?
Oh, oh my god, what was his name?
The Knot. The True Knot.
True Knot.
Getting picked off in the fucking woods is such a wild scene. But also, when What's-Her-Face's last request was telling Billy to kill himself. Like, it's so out of left field.
I have to say, my favorite was when Snakebite Andy just... Oh my god. You know what? I know that it's like bad, but it was just, I was so satisfied. I was like, I'm okay right now. This is...
And then the tracker getting killed.
Also, I remember this specifically. That movie made way better use of the term Ka than the entire Dark Tower movie did. I remember literally sitting there, and my friend, she and I are huge King fans. We're sitting there, and we're like hitting each other because we're like, "Oh my god, they mentioned Ka!"
Yeah. There's a couple, and if you for those out there, there's some great YouTube videos breaking down the film itself. If you don't have time to watch it, you definitely should watch it though. But actually do a great job breaking down piece by piece, kind of everything that relates to King. Flanagan has said he is a concert reader himself. He loves Stephen King. He finds a lot of inspiration in him. And he has led to a lot of Easter eggs about King in this film specifically, and in his Netflix series. You're gonna see a couple Easter eggs from Mr. Stephen King as well. So be on the lookout for them.
Is he in the movie? No, he's not in the movie. No, he was in It. That's what I'm thinking of. He's in It. The second one. I will say, apparently Flanagan had an idea to do a Dick Halloran prequel and an Abra Stone sequel, and he was open to the Abra Stone idea. But the box office wasn't there, obviously.
No.
So that's not how I don't think we need them, I'll be honest with you.
It's found a resurgence on streaming and DVD. I will say that. I know because Flanagan talked about it during his Midnight Club panel. He thanked people for viewing Dr. Sleep. I think one of the cast members had made a joke about residuals had bumped up. And you only really get that bump in residuals when there's more people streaming or buying your film. So obviously word of mouth has finally struck for a film that's 3 years old, 4 years old now.
Yeah, 3 years old. 3 years old this month.
Rebecca Ferguson, though.
Rebecca Ferguson. I remember, I'm like, all right, Mission Impossible, she's great.
Yeah.
Great showman. Hate the fact that it's about a terrible fucking human being, but she's great in it.
Correct.
But then I was like, oh my god. She was just...
Yeah. Perfection.
I know our resident Mission Impossible fan, Ethan, will always be like, she's her best role is Mission Impossible, I'll be like, nah, it's here.
Very thirsty for Rebecca Ferguson, our resident imaginary country person.
Imaginary countryman. Sitting on a rock waiting for Rebecca Ferguson to come pick him up.
I want to, because as we are approaching our closing here, I want to give John a brief second or two, and then I will have a second. I just kind of want to close on, what does King mean to you? Like when you found King, like what reading or watching the films based on his work, like what does Stephen King mean to you?
King represents to me an evolution in my reading, an evolution in broadening my reading spectrum. So before then, I'm reading like young adult stuff, middle grade kind of thing, and those are still great. I'll still read Rick Riordan or the Pendragon Adventure series all the live long day. Alex Rider, I still collect the books all the time. King's books were the first adult novels I ever read.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me want to check out other adult novels. Stuff of like, okay, this would interest me. This interests me. King's writing and his style just kind of opened the doors into more adventures to be discovered, I guess you could say.
Yeah. That is, I mean, it's so astoundingly true. And I will kind of go along with those same sentiments. I think reading Stephen King made me a better reader. And it also made me take more chances when it came to picking up books that I wouldn't normally like give a second glance to. Because as we said, King is not just a one-note author. He really writes about so many different facets of life and things that you wouldn't necessarily think you should be scared of, and things that you wouldn't necessarily consider innately evil or innately good. And there's so many different avenues to reading that you can get into. So I encourage people, even if you think to yourself, I'm not going to like this book. I know for a fact I'm not going to like Stephen King. It's just not going to work out. You have to give it a chance, though. You have to at least try.
Like, I didn't think I would like a fantasy book about a dude running along the desert.
Same.
Just chasing with guns. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. And, became one of the most rewarding experiences. I think I finished the 7th book. I started in middle school and I finished right before high school graduation for the Dark Tower series.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there just feeling a sense of finality. I mean, obviously I got a novella a year later, but
I will say, as we wrap up here, Stephen King is arguably one of the more divisive authors. There are some who are adamant at just not reading his work, and there are some who will literally go, book 1 to book 65, and I find myself in the camp of I enjoy his work, haven't read it all, but I do enjoy it. But I will say that I get it. I get why people enjoy it so much. I get why they've become so vested in it. And I always go back to that first line, that hook of, the man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger filed. And I will say to you, find your hook in King. Find that book that brings you in and makes you part of this wonderful community.
I have to say, King fans, from what I've met, are some of genuinely the most delightful fans I've ever met.
Yeah.
They're so just like happy to talk about the good and the bad and everything.
And that's the mark of a true fan. They don't just talk about the good. They will actively shit on some of the stuff. And it's so true and it's so worth it.
And we have too. Like, we shit on Dreamcatcher for majority of the time.
Yes. But I will say, there's a lot of good King out there.
Just gotta find it.
You just gotta find it. So do what you must. Go out there, read one of our recommendations, possibly skip some of the films that we talked about or not. Doesn't matter. But thank you for being on this journey with us. This has been a Gate Slashers presentation.
I want to, before we close, I want to close on the greeting of luck that Roland says to many of his people that he meets. Long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights.
You have twice the number.
This is the quartet of 9 and 19. For Gate Slashers, this has been RJ.
I'm John.
Thank you again.
Run low on salt shells over here.
Oh, shit, I only have one left. We need a plan, and we need a plan fast.
I didn't think it could shapeshift, but here we are, fighting a giant alien spider god.
Oh, wait, we've dealt with worse, right? This clown stinks. He doesn't even know how to do balloon animals. Trash.
Wait, that did something. That googly-eyed fuck looks like he loses his power when we mock him.
His shoes, whack. His hair, whack. The way he swallows the souls of the innocent, whack. Us, we're tight as fuck.
Cover me.
Hey, Bozo. Heard you got something called the Deadlights? How about you deadlight up these nuts?
Fatality.
Damn, that was a combo move. Okay. Pennywise is dead. So, the turtle mentioned something about a book bound in flesh. Sounded like the plot of The Evil Dead.
Oh, shit. Oh, no. Oh, I fucked up. I fucked up real bad.
Huh?
Alright, so after we got back last year from Maine, I got this package and it just stunk. It had this letter from someone named Ashley Williams saying the book was our problem now. And I guess it didn't connect what it all meant, so I just kind of tossed it in my desk drawer.
Ashley Williams. Like Ash Williams. Dan. Is the Necronomicon in your desk at Gatecrashers HQ?
Yeah, I'm gonna call the office and see if anybody's there. It will be all right.
So this whole thing was probably a distraction. The grave robber has definitely taken the HQ.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like we're heading into the office on Halloween.